Okay, welcome everybody. This is Ted Prodromou, and this is our soon-to-be weekly or semi-weekly calls on Tuesday. I'm gonna try to do more consistent calls. I did that a couple years ago. I did over 100 LinkedIn lives on Tuesdays at noon, and it was doing really well. And for some reason, I stopped.
100's it's a good run.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I was working on a project. We were calling it Epic Encore. Not Epic Encore. It was called uh Iceberg. It was the Iceberg Project. So we're doing deep market research where I do all these different tools and I would do keyword research and content research and YouTube research and find out what people are actually talking about for everybody's little niche. And I came across somehow, Francis, how did we meet? I don't remember how we met. It was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, it was, and I had bought your book, the LinkedIn book, and then I was following you. And did I reach out to you? Did you reach out to me? I don't know, Ted.
I bet it was through LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's
Surprise,
right.
surprise.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
since then, you were a guest on part of my Operation Iceberg project because we were using online tools to do the research, and you take it to a whole nother level where you get a lot more information from people. So, hey, welcome to the call.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Um, what's funny here is I've been scrambling, trying to explain what I do, which is supposed to be a service that helps my clients explain what they do. And taking my own medicine is it's not easy sometimes.
It's really easy to do it for clients, but it's really hard to do for yourself.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny what happened recently. I've got an explainer video link on the homepage of my website. I needed it. I really needed it. And so I contacted this company and just they did it and they put it together and it's on my website. And then I got a call from somebody who had contacted the Explainer video company. Um, uh, um, uh, what are they called now? Um, anyway, it's on the bookshelf there. But somebody had contacted them and they through that contacted me. So it's that network that works so well. And this is something that I'm trying to do for my clients is because they're flooded with marketing opportunities, but so often they find it so difficult to get out there and say what they do in a way that's memorable.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's what I'm able to provide to them.
So how did you get started in this? How long have you been doing it, and how did you end up doing this kind of market research?
I was about 15 years ago, I was working with quite a number of clients, both on the professional side and on the trade side, contractors. And I've been focusing on the high value services providers, whether they're an accountant or a custom home builder. It takes time for their buyers, their clients, to make a decision. So I decided to work with these people, and I was working with an accountant and I was about to do the interview. And over my career, I probably interviewed thousands of different people in when I was back in the advertising industry and since then. And I was about to interview my client, an accountant, and I realized, you know what? She's brilliant, but she's a typical accountant. She's not a communicator. So I said, Belinda, can I talk to some of your clients and get some feedback? And I don't know where that idea came from, but I did that. And I talked to, I think, 20 of her clients. And Ted, I was floored because um, not only did they say um, reliable, trustworthy, efficient, good value for my money. They use those typical phrases that you hear in testimonials, but they also told me stories. And I learned one story. I can't tell you who it is, but because of confidentiality. But the owner of the company told me this story about how the accountant had found that their accountant was embezzling, and he thought he was being very smart.
Oh.
Well, he went to jail, and he was happy to tell me that story. And she was very surprised that he told me that story. So that gave me another lesson in that as an independent third party, I get to hear things that other people um, won't. won't you don't tell your best friend some of your secrets, but you might tell the person on the next airline seat some of your deepest secrets, knowing that you're never going to see them again. And I don't know if there's a term for it, but I would call it the confessor effect. That's my Catholic upbringing coming forward. But when I open up the door for people to talk, and they need to understand it's confidential, it's not going to get used anywhere without permission, blah blah blah. Then they come forth with all sorts of interesting things. So that's how it started when I realized through those interviews for the accountant what the possibilities were. And so over the years, I've sort of learned more and more, and it's been a really interesting journey.
This works really well because if I ask my clients what they think of me, ask for a testimonial, it's really most of the time they say, well, just write it and I'll put my name on it or I'll edit it. But when a third
And
party interviews them or asks them questions, like you said, they open up and give you so much great information.
I get, on average, about half a page of text per interviewee of potential testimonial material. The text that I'll get pages and pages of transcripts from people. Um, but it's once I pull out the positive statements, it's about half a page. And that gives a lot of choice. And it's so much more valuable than 4 stars or 4.5 stars or whatever you see
Yeah.
in the rating systems, because it's got that human touch to it where it's the sentences. And I try not to edit it too much. My client will send them through and say, can I use this? Or here's what I've chosen. And 90% of the time, it's approved.
Yeah.
Once in a while, somebody says to me, and I've got one of those right now. I've got this client. He's a business coach in southeastern US, and one of the people said, uh, um, "Yeah, you might be able to, but first, I want to see what you're writing." Well, it's not me writing; it's what you've said. But okay, you're going to get it from the client. You're going to get it from the business coach, not from me. So it's those longer statements that really make a big difference.
Mhm.
So I've got some slides prepared, and should I jump over and run
Yeah.
through some of these, and then we can flip flop back and forth?
Yeah. Great.
Okay, so you can see that.
It says it started screen sharing. There it is.
Okay, so the feedback and reputation report. By the way, I've changed the name a few times because it was originally client satisfaction survey, and that just didn't. That's like a form that people send out. Then I changed it to client opportunity report because I like the COR in client opportunity report, but that doesn't really explain what it does. So now I'm using this feedback and reputation report because that's what it is. It's feedback. It is about their reputation. So what comes out of it is detailed testimonials, as I mentioned a minute ago. But beyond that, what's really important is stories. People tell other people's stories. When you're dealing with a high value services provider, whether it's an accountant or a specialty contractor or whatever, people don't make decisions quickly. And when the stories get them emotionally, it paints the picture. Um, Content that gets traction, what that means, it's proof of what worked. Because when multiple people have a positive experience and they say a common thing, then you know that that message is working. That's similar to client personas and motivations. And what it can do is improve teams. It can provide competitive positioning. One of the questions is, well, before you started using Jim, um, did you look at any others? And so that can provide a lot of information. So I'll go through these in a bit, but let me go to the next one here. So I mentioned that I go after high value services providers. We don't need to spend time on that. And on the left there, you see the types of people who will be interviewed: strategic decision makers, operational decision makers. Then, if somebody has a short list, they can also add in key suppliers and common users. These are all relationship based. That's what I want people to tap into. Where are those relationships? And again, on the right side, you see where some of the applications of the interviews are used, but depending on the editing. So deliverables, testimonials, stories, and story frames. A story frame is an idea I came up with. I'll show you a bit in a couple of minutes here. Frontline feedback on the professionals, on partners. Oh, I had a situation a few years ago with an electrical contractor, and the feedback I got was one of the partners was terrible at his service. He was rude consistently, and they didn't know that. When people are developing content, whether it's digital content or a presentation, that can can be very helpful there. Personas and motivations, blah blah blah. Anyway, on the bottom you see there that I put half a page per interviewee of testimonial statements with permission to use about 60% of the time. 60 to 70% of the time. And what I suggest to my clients is give me 20, 25, 30 names, and there's a process in how I contact them so that there's that high level of trust all the way through. In the report, now I have different packages, but in the report, these are some of the ways that the editing can be done. On the top left, that's the tip of the iceberg, the testimonials. But over on the right side, you see client experience journey improvement, business cases, referrals, issues management. Issues management. Now that's an interesting one. When people start bringing up the negative, are they ready to pass it along? That's a challenge. So this is types of clients that I've dealt with. You know, they don't know where they're at, and the business coach that I'm dealing with, his website is good. It's designed really well, and it's average. The text is average. He's just another business coach. But what I'm finding for him is some really interesting stuff. Sales teams, different people going in different directions. There's no unified reputation for the company being built. A larger firm can understand the types of people who interact best with the clients and who they should be recruiting. And here's one that keeps on coming up. I hear so many variations on this statement. I don't know why they don't fix it. Oh my God. The cost of that. I haven't calculated it, but there's a significant cost to that. So where's the information? Now, what I tried to do, the picture on the left side wasn't quite bang on what I was looking for. But I'm going to stop sharing here for a second and just show you what happened. I was interviewing somebody many years ago, and this is back in the days of fan-fold paper reports from the hottest new piece of software that management was getting. And I was interviewing my potential clients, and I was trying to dig in to get them marketing information and the insight and the trends and all of this stuff. He said, "Here it is." He was really sarcastic. "Here it is." And he had trouble picking up this huge stack of fan fold paper. He said, "It's in there." Where is it? I have no idea. I don't know what's in there. They gave this to me. I don't know what the paper cost. I don't know what the time cost, but it's a high cost. I don't know what's in there. What's it worth? And I thought, wow, that was really interesting. So
We used
that's
to do that when I
what
worked for IBM. We'd create these incredibly like 1,000-page PowerPoint results and print it out. It was like a foot high, and we'd kind of roll our heads and say, yeah, it's usually about $1,000 a page. That's what we charge the. So
wow. And on the right side, I've got some people talking. And that's very, that's where it's at. Because again, when you're dealing with high value services, it's about the talking. It's about those discussions. They can be digital, they can be in person, they can be done all sorts of ways. But it's not in that fanfold report or in the beautiful presentation. It's in something very human. That's where the value is. So I tell people I want to put together a list. I suggest to them 20 or 30 interviews. When I say 30, when I get 30, about 24 say yes. And out of that, about two-thirds will give permission for uh, their statements to be used as testimonials. On the left side, let me talk a little bit about preferred versus average. I was dealing with a financial firm in a town close to a big city. And just out of the blue, I said to my client, oh, by the way, note who's preferred and who's average. And I hadn't thought of that before. Now I always ask it, who's preferred and who's average? And the average client liked to do business with this financial firm because they were in that town and they were loyal and they knew them and they saw them in the community and things like that. Preferred clients said nothing about location. They used words like systems, processes, methods, reliability. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. So I told the partners, and they started changing their messages. And when people started, and they were able to recognize the different personas, and when they found somebody who was really concerned about operational processes and things like that, they knew what message to say and what testimonials to show. So I don't have anything perfect. Nobody does. It's got to be a marriage of the digital and the in-person marketing. And together, it's how do you use this together? You've got the text, you've got the website, you've got the social media, but you're out there in the community. You've got stories to tell to your referral partners. You're building your reputation over time. Don't get into the detail here, but you can see that there's a flow and it needs to be, you need to really consider, how do I use this on the right side? How do I build my reputation? Who's going to tell my story? What story is going to resonate best with them? So one thing that I started doing about 6 years ago in my report, I started adding pictures. I'm a word person. I'm a terrible graphic designer. The graphics that you see here, I ripped these off. I stole from various websites, except for the word cloud on the bottom left. But these have been used in reports. The one on the top left was describing a business coach. This is a few years back. And on the bottom right, you see that's for also for a business coach. On the bottom left, you see that I got a word cloud created. And what terms came out most often in the testimonials? It's interesting. The word emotion and help were equal to budget, finance, and budgeting. Why do you go to an accountant? Because of this. So here's some examples of actual comments that I've collected. And on the bottom, I've summarized some of them. Help getting through complicated government banking and other documents, managing both Canadian and U.S. taxes, treaty-based tax filing, Oh, just a little editorial aside, that might be a really good opportunity for an accountant client who happens to be very good at Canada, US import export. He might have a lot of opportunities in the near future to sort out people here because I'm in British Columbia. I'm not American. That's my nickel editorial for the day. Okay, so the report. How do we use the report? In the report, the customer understands why some people prefer them over the others. They're able to tell others their stories. Um, their client development becomes more efficient, and their confidence. And that's really an interesting point. Their confidence. And that was something that surprised me. You've had 8, 10 years of university, plus you've taken professional development, plus you're the senior partner in the firm, and you need more confidence? Apparently they do.
Hmm.
So now I mentioned that one of the things that comes out is segments and personas. What are the common groups? And this is not something I choose. This is something based on people's input. If you think of getting feedback from people as the mirror to the marketplace is the mirror to the person. We think we know ourselves, but our clients know us better, and the wisdom of the crowd is a true thing. There is real wisdom in the crowd. And so when you ask the group who knows you and they've dealt with you on various levels in detailed ways over time, that really reflects the individual. And that's such an important point. I wanted to really point that out because it makes such a difference. So I mentioned story frames. A story frame is a summary of some of the stories that come together. Okay. When I collect these stories, I get amazing things. Um, one story, a set of stories that I've got from this business coach in the Southeast US is I didn't want to work with him. I went to one of his meetings. I talked to him on the phone. I didn't want to work with him originally. But over time, multiple exposures to him through referrals and hearing from him and nurturing that he did, then I went with him. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. So that was really valuable. So a story frame is a summary, blah, blah, blah. Exposure through stories over time, digitally, in the community, from referral sources, in a presentation. We humans don't learn by a single contact. We learn by a variety of media over time. And so if you know what that core story is, and you repeat that story again and again, both in the social media and referrals and presentations and networking and all the different ways that we have of communicating, if you know what that core story is, then you can communicate it. And so that's what I'm trying to do with the story frames is teach my client, this group, this is how they care about you. By the way, story frames can be both positive and negative. So it helps them with their networking. I don't need to go into that. I'm helping my client to get more opportunities. This is getting into the marketing details. Because of my marketing background, I try and help my clients, my report. I try to really add, do you need to change? Do you need to turn around? Do you need to retarget? And what motivators have we found that really trigger people to action? So again, over time, it builds up the connection with people. You know, it doesn't happen all at once. So here are some of the positives and some of the negatives. I don't know if you like the speaker of this particular quote, but anyway, there's a lot of people who they steer away from the negative. And if Bill Gates is truly able to listen to and profit from negative feedback, then that's great. Um, because sometimes, oh, you should hear some of these negatives. I'm not going to tell you who said what, but some of them are just amazing. So on the top there, I've got the positive points, and on the bottom, I've got the negative points. And, emotional intelligence, that is so important. It's not just receiving it, but it's also emotional intelligence is how do you present to your team and your partners negative statements? How do you make that into a growing experience, a positive experience? And that's something that I've been spending a little time on lately is the emotional intelligence side. I know this because my relationship with my life partner, sometimes it's a little challenging and she will say things that I can get defensive about and I need to go, okay, just be quiet and listen. What's the positive in here?
So how do positive things help you? If she does thorough work, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
how does that help you? I can see the negatives. You say, okay, I need to fix this. But when it keeps just generic, oh, they do wonderful work. We love working with them. How does that help?
Oh, it's just recognizing who cares about that point. Some
Okay.
people, some people care about the thoroughness. Other people don't.
So that helps you define your personas then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's each, you know, while I might have packages on my website, each one is really it's a huge lesson in customization because I tend to spend more time on the analysis. And because I'm an idea person, I'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I see how those connect now. And then I'll rush in here and I'll write some notes down and stuff like that. And, you know, hopefully get back to sleep later. But that's what happens is how you do we use both the positives and the negatives to improve the individuals? Because again, I say I'm talking with high value services providers. We're not selling cars, we're selling trust. And that takes time. It's about our ability.
Do you
So
create
here's
a
my back.
list of questions that you run by with your client first before you ask them like
Oh,
20 questions?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, I definitely do that. The you're familiar with the client opportunity, pardon me, the client journey, client experience journey.
Yeah.
How did I learn? How did you first realize you had a need? How did you find John Smith? Did you look at any other services providers? Oh, you found Sally Johnson. Tell me, what were the attributes about John Smith and the attributes about Sally Johnson that really attracted you? Okay. Who else was involved with the decision? Um, did you have trouble explaining what Sally Johnson does, what John Smith does? You decided to go with John Smith. Why? What were his positives? Okay. Since when you started with John, what was that onboarding experience like? How did you, what was that like? And while you, after you started working, have you been giving him any feedback? Does he ask for feedback? Um, you expected certain things. Did um, did your experience equal your expectations, or is there something not delivered? Because nobody's perfect. Um, and it goes on from there. Another one is, have you told anybody about who you're using? How did you describe them to your friends or associates? Okay. Um, so you can see where the referrals are and things like that. And there's a couple of things that one of my guiding principles is when I hear really negative stories about one of the staff or something like that, I will inform my client right away because that's too important to wait a couple of weeks for the report to be put together. Another one is when there's a hot opportunity where they say, yes, yes, I told my friend Sally about John, and I know that Sally would be a great client for John. Oh, okay. So now I'm able to pass along to my client, look, you know, um, you, John Smith, need to contact her friend Sally, because she's seriously looking. She's getting ready to purchase from somebody. So these are some of the questions that I will ask. And, it's one thing that I recently started doing is starting with an open-ended first question. Tell me, before I get into the questions that I put together for you to ask you today, give me your idea of your overall experience with them. And that really it answers a bunch of the following questions very nicely, but B, it also shows what's top of mind for them, what's most important for them. And that really makes a difference. Um, what were you needing before you started searching? That's so important. That's hugely important. One question that really brings out really interesting stories. Think about a situation in your company, either with you and your partners or your team, or between your company and clients. But think about a situation where it's changed from before to after. So what was typically happening before and what's happening now that indicates the results of the service that you've received? And that really brings out the stories. And it's those stories. I'm not just all about stories. I'm banging that drum because they're so valuable. But there's other there are other things that are important, but the stories just bring so much life to it.
Yeah.
And that question really kicks in sometimes if I haven't spent too long, because in the past couple of weeks, I've had a couple of people say, your email said it was only going to be 5 minutes. It's now been it's now been 15 minutes. And I say, oh, I've just got one or two questions left.
So how many
But
questions total do you usually ask?
I try to keep it under 20.
Okay.
20 is really the limit because I'm dealing with senior level people. Now, over the years, I've interviewed homemakers, but I've also interviewed the president of a $1 billion corporation and CEOs of public companies and people like that. I've interviewed people in German hospitals. I interviewed um, a sports official in Australia. It's just like it's all over the map. It's really,
Yeah.
really quite interesting where they come from. So this is my turn to say, do you have any questions? Let me see if there's anything in the chat. Oh, Lorna, you're in Alberta. Okay. Um,
Do you
so
have different questions for like if you're doing an accountant, do you have a set of questions or
absolutely. Yes, because an accountant, the quarterly reports and the things like that, and but it also comes back to the so often they're relationship questions. Assuming that the quality standard is good, okay? Once we get past that, we get into the relationship. If they're meeting their technical uh, minimums, and they're showing that they're reliable and things are on time and, there's the detail and all of that in there, then we get into the relationship because that's where the loyalty starts. And if we can help them create loyalty, that's so much better. Obviously, an accountant is very different from a few years back. I did a specialty stainless steel fabricator, very different. They did commercial kitchens, but again, it was the relationships that seemed to come through because custom home builders love working with them.
Mhm.
So yeah, I will adjust the questions, and I send the questions to my client so that they can improve them all. And they'll have their own questions. And just discipline in the questions is trying to keep it down to a reasonable number, not having too many.
Like you said,
So
it's got to be 10 or 15 minutes maximum, right? Because they're very busy people.
I had the guy in the German hospital, he spoke for 47 minutes.
Hmm.
And it's not my job to shut them down. It's my job to just keep it going.
Right.
You know, I didn't encourage him after half an hour, but he was very enthusiastic about the client. So that was good. Um, how can these be used? That's so important because I collect all this information and I don't want to create a half-foot fan-fold report for somebody. How are they going to make it useful? So in the report, I'll give them suggestions on how to do networking. Oh, I find that you're getting more traction with these types of people. Are you a member of this association or industry group or whatever it happens to be? Do you ever go to these trade shows? Sometimes it could be a church, sometimes it could be a parent teacher, who knows? But there are that they can be networking and what stories to tell in networking. After the report is delivered, I believe that they should be sending 3 emails. Number one, of my client to the interviewee. Thank you very much. Francis says he got some really good information. I really appreciate your being generous and taking the time. Email number two. We are now in the analysis stage of putting together your generous ideas and thoughtful comments, blah, blah, blah. Email number three, we've made some changes in our organization and you've helped contribute to that. You can see some of these on our website, but hopefully some of the other changes are in how we work with people like you. And it's all about building the loyalty. So those are some of the ways that it can be used. So I'll give people suggestions because I've worked on websites and advertising and networking and overall marketing. I will try to give people, I'm not doing a campaign for them, but hopefully I'm giving them the bare bones that they can build something. So,
Right. This is very similar to what I did at IBM years ago, but I would interview executives that talk about their business, what their wishes were, where do you want your business to go, and then we'd summarize it in these huge PowerPoints. But then we'd also have to create, like, I was the technical guy, so we'd have to design a computer network, and here's the infrastructure
uh,
you need to accomplish that. It was it was hard because you sat there all day interviewing people, then you have to type up all the notes, then you do this report, and then you never knew if they actually implemented it because a different part of IBM would be the implementation team.
uh, well, I don't get involved with the implementation, but I'm not dealing on that level.
Yeah,
So I get to see a little bit more firsthand and get to hear the stories. And it's really interesting how people wake up and it gives them a breath of fresh air. Oh, because once they get the marketplace giving them feedback, that gives them a lot of good information.
yeah. We got
So,
some great information because people would open up. But if you give them a written survey or something like that, or an online survey, it just doesn't work the same way.
check, check.
Plus, when you're
Three,
interviewing people, you can see their facial expressions as to, oh yeah, I gotta a button here. I've got to go down this rabbit hole with this person.
Right. And there's always so
And
much more meaning behind their answers,
Yeah,
which, a checkbox just doesn't capture.
no, and that brings up the really interesting point of analysis. When I first started doing this, I was recording them and then playing it back and trying to transcribe it. And then I got into the automated transcription. Nowadays, the automated transcription also leads into AI and can do a net promoter score. And if you're not familiar with net promoter score, what it is of the interviewees, 100% of the interviewees, what percentage are negative? So to give you an example, when I originally did that accountant 15 years ago, it just popped into my head. Wonder how many of these are negatives. And I did that by accident, and I ended up with I think 92%. And I thought that's pretty good, because you can't please everybody.
right.
So
Do
um,
you follow up with the people you interviewed, like a few months later to find out if they like what's happened or anything?
the interviewee, no. The client, yes. But the interviewee, they're not my client. I get them on the permission of my client, the subject of the interviews. So I don't want to touch them. All communications should be going through the client, the subject of the
Right. And
interviews.
the client doesn't ask you to or give you permission to go back to the interviewee and follow up with them to
It's
see.
it's been discussed and sometimes happens, but not very often. And there is real value to see, did we move from here to here? Did we change? Did we grow? Did we adapt? And that's
Right.
very important because if we could do a 6 month or a 2 year, um, you know, shorter version, because by this time they'll remember me and they'll be able to answer more questions. So one of the issues we had talked about before was the staff seemed to be on different pages as far as their customer service goes. How are they doing now? So that is very valuable. But I'm not dealing with big business. I'm dealing with small people, you know, typically under 50 employees.
It just seems to me it would be worthwhile to find out if, progress has been made based on your feedback that you've given them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you,
Okay.
you know, but I need to sell that more.
Yeah. Well,
You work
That's
with people who can implement some of the changes, like organizational people.
I definitely would mention those when they're appropriate. Your website's ugly, or you need a better copywriter, or something I created a few years back was I created a course in networking because I realized some of these high level people were idiots when it came to going out to a trade show or a chamber of commerce or things like that. But somebody who can coach them on that. I know a very good speech writer, and people like that are really valuable to the right type of person, people. So,
Yeah, I think the client would like that. So here's some more
Yeah.
areas for improvement, and you can give them a list. Here's three people that can help you.
right.
well, since I've done some coaches, I've got coaches I can refer them to, and I've gotten a sense of which coach fits what personality.
Yeah,
So yeah, that really helps people a lot because they don't know where to start.
right. Yeah,
Yeah, I was thinking the same things that there's like not just I mean there's the referrals and making the referrals for the implementation because most likely they don't know what to do like that could change some of I mean it could change everything from firing somebody and hiring someone to a whole new strategic plan
Hmm.
of doing business. So there's lots of pieces to help them with. And that's what people struggle with the most.
Yeah.
Once they're clear, like you help them get clear on what it is they need to change. And that then it's how do they implement that and not because it's like I mean I would imagine that it's similar to any of us going to a 3 day, convention or where you're meeting people and you get all wrapped up and you've got your whole book and notes of everything you're going to change when you get home and by the end of the month you can't even find the notebook to find out what it is that you thought was a good idea. Um, so being able to help them through that and identify that's almost like having your own little team of referrals. But there might be, I mean, there might be an opportunity for you in some ways of building that team of referrals that helps you, whether it's maybe something more than referral fees. I don't know. I think there's, having your back pocket people, um, it
Yes.
would be really handy.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And
Because they
yeah, that's
trust
one
you
of
for the
the,
referral. They want you to recommend someone you know will do a good job.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Last week, I was looking for
And
someone to help with thumbnails for my YouTube videos. And I asked somebody who's an expert, and they referred me to this website. I had to answer this 10 question survey. Like, I just want to talk to somebody. And they never got
oh,
back to me.
really? Oh
Yeah.
no. See, the automation just kills so much. We need the automation, but we can't remove the human contact.
Yeah.
And you got to have that balance. And, um, one point that I always try to stress to people, it's not my advice. It's based on what the feedback from the marketplace is. What I'm capturing is just a reflection of you through your clients,
Yeah.
through your customers. And if I can, through all of these interviews and the many thousands of words I collect, I can find one or two nuggets and they can use those nuggets. Now, the step is where do I use them? How do I use them? Which is a priority? Things like that. But that's what I try to guide people on because so often, again, because I'm dealing with the smaller organizations, they don't have big marketing departments. They might not be sophisticated about personas and nurturing and all the rest of it. They they need some of that basics. So that's what I'm trying to deliver based on the reflection in the marketplace of the marketplace to them. So
Right.
Well, it sounds like in that case, it's the message, like it's helping them find their holes and change their messaging and approach. And whether they do it by email marketing or they do it by direct, mail, or they do it by, I don't know, telesales, like however they do it is just how they express it. That's just how they choose to do whatever's in their market for them, and what works for their business. That that's kind of a detail as opposed to what do you want to change for
one
so
thing
that
that I
you
try to
attract more
stress,
of your best people, and then
hmm,
figure out the method.
one thing I try to stress, Lorna, is what's the idea and what are the multiple ways to do it
Yeah,
over multiple media and over time. Because if you can do this through multiple communication formats over time, then you're teaching the marketplace and this is the
yeah,
building of your reputation. But hopefully what I'm giving them gives them the confidence to say, oh, here's my message,
yeah.
you know, here's what I want to say. Um, just quickly looking through my notes here, um, some of the things that I've written down about some of the people I've dealt with. Um, I did an accountant last fall, and what I learned about him, and he didn't know it was special. This is interesting. He didn't know that his tendency to get back to people within the same day with prepared answers, not just this, oh, my receptionist told me that you called yesterday. What's this about?
Right.
No, it's, oh, you wanted to find out if this would be a good investment of my time and money. Well, I've done a little background, blah, blah, blah. And he's got loyalty up here
Mhm.
because of this. And he wasn't aware of that. So this is how he differentiates. And so this is the message that he's able to take to the marketplace. And so Lorna, over time, he's hopefully using that not only on his website. His website is so very much accountant. I'm trying to add some humanity to it, but it's also um, he's a new Canadian. Okay, he's originally from India. His English is not bad. His accent is heavy, okay, but he has a really interesting mix of clients because people can listen beyond the accent. And when they learn of his special difference, that's where it's really interesting to see where he's getting clients now. And that's given him confidence. But somebody's got to work on his website.
Yeah. So what's a
One step at a
typical
time.
engage? Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, I was just going to say one step at a time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is pre-tax season, so I don't want to bother him until June.
Yeah. So what's a typical engagement cost your clients? Ballpark.
Um, if it's just a basic, we want some testimonials and a few basic stories, that's about $2,000. But if they want the full meal deal, that's going to be close to $5,000. And what they're going to get out of that is um, in listening to people, I write ideas down. In doing the analysis of the interviews, I have a big document that okay, that goes into this section of the report, that goes into this section of the report. And nowadays I'm using a couple of different AI programs. I'm not going to rely on them, but they are definitely speeding up things and supplementing, but they miss things.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm trying to teach an AI how to find these story frames. It's even having difficulty figuring out what stories are. So,
Yeah.
you know, and so it goes. But it 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 takes me a few weeks
Yeah.
if it's a deep dive. But half of that time is trying to get these people on the phone.
Yeah.
And I
Uh-huh.
have a very strict process of getting them, but I don't know what's happening in the southeastern US, but it's like pulling teeth. Email number one, email number two, voicemail, text, additional email from my client.
Or they book a time and reschedule it 3 times.
Uh,
Yeah.
Do you mind?
so
Do you mind if I ask what transcription software you were using? Do you use?
I'm using
What is it?
R-E-V, R-E-V, Rev.
REV.
Yeah, I have Rev on my phone, and uh, I I capture it. It goes into the Rev system. It's generally okay. It gets creative with names and things like that because it doesn't quite understand and accents. Oh, there's another story when it gets into accents, but you got to be really careful. Um, and they've got different levels of transcription. They've got the automated AI type, and then they've got the full human type. They also have a legal level so that is covering off the confidentiality requirements of the legal profession. Because, there are times that I know that I'm getting into really sensitive stuff. And so I really have to be careful there. Um, I am sort of in the background shopping around for other transcription systems, but it's got to have that confidentiality up here.
Right.
Security is so important.
Great. So how can people get in touch with you?
Well, I'm glad to see that you put my URL on the notes. Francis with a CIS, Francis at gapmanagement.org. I'm an organization of one. So it's Francis at gapmanagement.org. Or you can even phone me or text me, 604-789-1676. And let's go through to here. Yes, okay. Just to share that. How's that?
There we go. Perfect.
So,
We did it.
I wasn't sure if an incentive was needed. So,
People are
putting it
always
out
open
there,
to incentives.
uh, they're never cash, except for when I get a referral to a new client. Um, but if, which of these is more interesting? High value services provider needing to improve their communications or winning more preferred clients. So one is reputation and the other is zeroing in on the right few.
That's important. They're both important.
Yeah, they're both very important. And the other incentive I put together a few years ago, I put together a course that I call Networking for Reputation Growth, NRG, Energy. Anyway, enough of the bad puns, but it's a 6-part program on how to test your client list and see where you might be missing people, what local organizations, face-to-face organizations might have people like that. When you go to one of those events, before you walk into the room, how do you scout the room? Next step is how to get other people talking. Another step is when they start talking and they've given you their business card, what do you write on the business card? What 4 points do you write on the business card uh, to quickly capture? How important is this person? When should I talk to them again? Summary of the topic, and I forget number 4. But anyway, and then how to stay in touch with people after. So that's what that's about.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This has been great.
Yep, that was very interesting. Thank you.
And is there any more questions? I don't want to take too long, but
Yeah,
is there
I
anything?
think the only comment I would have is on the, whether improved communications or getting preferred clients with that choice. I think that's two different groups of people because you're going to have some who are not aware that they need to improve their communication.
Mm,
So, um, and yet if that's an important piece, which it is, I just think I would just take a little more education maybe to get people to desire that. They they desire the preferred clients. And one of the ways they get the preferred clients is with the improved communication.
Right.
yeah, yeah.
But
Is
if you've got a group, like if you look back and you see that you've had clients that are specifically asking for improved communication, then that's a thing.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
The very last question I ask in my interviews, is there anything I missed? Is there anything you want to ask about or comment on that I missed?
That's a great question to ask GPT sometimes. Yeah. Not whether sometimes if I've missed it, but sometimes it's like, is there anything more you want to add to that? Like, is there anything you might be missing?
Right.
Um, it
Right.
comes up with
Then
a
you get the
whole lot more.
flood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
So,
That's when it goes to
Ted,
47 minutes.
Ted, I really appreciate the opportunity. This has been great. This is really helpful, and it really pushes me to review what I'm doing and what to emphasize.
I think it's a very valuable service.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was great, Francis. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
And my
everybody.
last question is, Lorna, where in Alberta are you from?
Medicine Hat.
Oh, I grew up in Calgary,
Okay.
blah, blah, blah. Okay, enough for that.
Cool.
The
Well,
forgotten
thank you.
corner, kind of the forgotten corner of Alberta.
Well, you reminisce. I got to get going, so thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Yes,
Yeah, thanks,
thank you very
Francis.
much, Ted. Okay, bye.